Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Out having fun but the background noise makes hearing impossible? Your friend just cracked a joke, but you completely missed it.
And then, immediately ordered tacos.
Discover Nuance Audio, the new invisible hearing solution that's built into your glasses. Discreet, comfortable, and easy to use. Nuance Audio glasses help you hear better and reduce annoying background noise so you can focus on the conversations that matter. Find a store near you at nuanceaudio.com.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning. Welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Danny Shopton. I had C70 with me, Alan Medlock, A Medlock 1. And we're coming to you Friday morning after the Cardinals finished not only a doubleheader sweep, but also a sweep of the Chicago White Sox. And Alan, I gotta admit, I checked Twitter this morning and saw something that I never would have thought I would have seen. Steven Matz and Bob Gibson in the same sentence. Both of them, the only two Cardinals that have ever struck out four batters in an inning. That is a little bit hard to believe, honestly, with the I mean, granted, Cardinal pitching is not necessarily legendary all the way, but as long as they've been around, you'd think more than two people would have done that.
Well, you're 100% right, because in my eyes, that doesn't seem like a totally uncommon occurrence. But the more you think about it, you're just like, well, I guess you never do see that in the big leagues. You know, on the high school level, unfortunately, you see it quite. It's surprising that that's the only two times. Now, you know, of course, you had a catcher for 20 years that would never allow that to happen. You know, one of those type of situations. So you can go and get in the weeds really quickly on the whys and hows of how this works out. But it's still just, the stat seems like an anomaly to me, like almost impossible to be right.
I wonder, again, it never happens. I probably never, ever, ever have happened this way. But, you know, 3 strikeouts on 9 pitches in an immaculate inning. What is 4 strikeouts on 12 pitches? I mean, it's not the pitcher's fault that the catcher missed it or something of that nature. You have to call it something different. But and again, you know, how rare as 4 strikeouts in an inning is, to do it on 12 pitches would be almost impossible, I guess.
Yeah, crazy. That's an aspect I hadn't thought about either. That's awesome.
Not the only person, though, in the history books yesterday. That is Nolan Arenado hitting his 350th home run. He's the 7th player to have hit 350 home runs and get 10 gold gloves. I looked the list up. You got any guesses on who the other ones are?
I saw the stat yesterday and I did not look it up. 350, 10 gold gloves. Is Robinson one?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think he hit 350 homers.
That would have been my only issue. Wow. I know when you say these, I'm gonna feel stupid, but no, I don't.
Okay, well, the first one the one I came up with yesterday without looking, and I should have known some of these other ones, but the one I came up with yesterday was Mike Schmidt.
Well, crap! I knew even before you said the word, I was like, it would have been Schmidt. Yeah,
yeah.
So.
He and Arenado are the only infielders.
Yeah,
and this is coming from Derek Gould's article today. The other ones are Johnny Bench, and then outfielders Willie Mays, which makes a lot of sense, right? Ken Griffey Jr., Al Kaline, and Andrew Jones. Which, I mean, if you're giving me a list, I think I would have. It makes sense on Andrew Jones, but I mean, obviously the Gold Gloves. I always forget how good it was and how long he listed and all that kind of stuff.
The thing is, when you bring up Jones, that's the more insulting that he's never. The Hall of Fame took so long. You know what I mean? Type of situation with him, because I mean he was elite for multiple years. Not a short period of time. And that strikes a chord with me a little bit, that he gets pushed down the list so much. But yeah, that's interesting. And I don't know why. I mean, I've even watched the Rose documentary several times, and I always forget, even being an Oklahoman, how good Bench was.
Yeah,
it's and that was Big Red Machine. That was the 70s. That wasn't
right.
You and I can say this, but when that long ago, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. In fact, let's see, that 75 World Series would have been the first one I was around for, so it can't be that long ago. Yeah, and of course, when you mention, I mean, Andrew Jones has worked his way up. He's and as Gould says here, everybody on that list is in Hall of Fame except for Jones, and he's at 66.2. He'll probably get to 75. He'll probably get elected in. But I think it still highlights the fact how much Jim Edmonds should have had more
yes,
run
100%
on the ballot.
Yes, 100%.
And he got, that 5% rule. I feel like, and I may be wrong, but I feel like they put it in around the time they banned Pete Rose, and so it was to make sure that he never, the write-ins didn't get him on a ballot or something of that nature. But, Edmonds came along when that had that backlog, and I'm sure more people would have voted for him, but they had, 15 players on there to vote for. So I look forward to seeing what happens when he comes up on the committees and stuff, but he should get some debate.
Yeah, that's, I've always felt like that was a huge oversight to be the one ballot guy. And we talked about this a lot, and it's also honestly something that when we talk about the Hall of Fame, I'm like, it's such a distance, because several things. One, there's just so much to debate, and the objectivity of it is tough. And two, there's like the debate almost just is mind numbing, to why some of the things happens and some of them don't.
Yep.
And I mean, I understand there's the calculation of how you stay on, and the percentage of vote you need to get in, and all kinds of stuff. And I feel like it's all antiquated, and we've talked for 10 years that it probably needs to be refined in some way. I just don't have any way of knowing, or I'm smart enough to come up with a way that makes sense on those things. And it feels like now with the Veterans Committee that safety net, which I fully agree with, is more evident now than ever, that some of these guys are like, this was stupid that you were off so quick, you're getting in. I hope all that rambling makes sense.
Yeah, I know Gould has for years, even back when he was president of the Baseball Writers, has pushed for a binary ballot where you voted yes or no on everybody.
Yeah,
and that would in theory allow. Now it's not as probably as much of an issue when the backlog is cleared a little bit, but you don't have to worry about strategic voting. You don't have to worry about I'm not going to vote for this guy because I don't have a room, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you might see more people in. Now, I'm not a big Hall guy.
Yeah.
I think that it's, I don't want to go too far into it. And also, I don't buy the whole you can't tell the story of the baseball without X, because all of these players have stuff at Cooperstown. They're telling that story without them being inducted.
Great point.
Like I said, Pete Rose has got stuff all over the Cooperstown Museum. I mean, and they don't ignore that just because, and there are people in that on the plaques that nobody knows either, right? From the older days. So my personal thing is, I'd rather it be really, really special, but I understand the big hall concept. And, it's just weird. Again, it's always been weird to me, watching these guys. And do you think about them being Hall of Famer when you watch them? And some players, I think, like Nolan, you probably do.
Oh, yeah. I would think so.
But there's going to be players that make the Hall of Fame that I'm like, not that they don't deserve it. I just don't think of them that way. Like,
exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Like Freddie Freeman. I mean, Freddie Freeman's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and Freddie Freeman deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Sure. I get that, but it's just not a guy that has ever, clicked with him, partly because, I'm on my team, all that kind of stuff. But he's just never a guy that immediately comes to mind when you say Hall of Fame. And that's me more than him. Don't get me wrong. But it's just an interesting when these guys get up for ballot, and especially guys that we watched in our, younger days or older days. Now some of these guys are getting there, and I'm like, I don't even vaguely remember them playing because it was past my that prime. I guess. But yeah, anyway, I didn't really want to go into Hall of Fame ramble, but I think Nolan was already there, I think, but if nothing else, that probably sealed his case.
Sure. No, completely agree. And it's one of those, I've become a bigger Nolan fan this year than I have ever. You know what I mean? Under the circumstances, I felt like he's been great. Said the right thing. Body language matches what he says. And I mean, it's one of those, we're seeing the twilight of the career type deal. And now, I mean, I hope he doesn't and don't think, and hope he stays around for a while through the contract. He's kind of won me over on how everything went this year, because I felt like it could have gotten ugly. And I give a lot of testament to Mo and the group too on that. Yeah.
And I mean, there's no doubt that the bat has slowed. I don't necessarily say that's more of a figure of speech, I guess. I think he is swinging harder than he has, but the results are not there, and he's getting older. But I will tell you, you cannot tell a difference in his defense at all. I think he's better this year than he's been the last couple of years.
100%. We brought that up last week. I completely agree with that.
Yeah. And we're seeing him get, he's had a couple home runs this week. We've seen him have some pretty good hits. He's not the guy that I necessarily want. If I was picking a guy to be up with, tying run on second, I don't know that I'm picking Nolan, but he's come through at least as often as he hasn't, I feel like. I mean, and he's getting paid a lot, but you're paying for past performance, and you kind of know that. And I agree. I want him to be a Cardinal. I always have, right? I mean, but I want him to be a Cardinal throughout the career. And I feel like he probably will be, because, I mean, the defense is great, but, is the offense at a spot where even if the Cardinals wanted to trade him, somebody would take him on? I know the contract gets a little bit cheaper over the next couple of years, but I don't know that anybody's going to be pressing to go get him. And if that's the case, then he stays in St. Louis.
Yeah, agreed. And, I know there's going to be a faction of sell. I just don't know what kind of piece the Cardinals are going to have to do that. And I mean that as a positive, so, and that will probably take up a lot of our show right now. But I feel like he stays around for a while, and I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah. And that does, I mean, that kind of is a place to start, I guess. The Cardinals struggled. They were losing last week when we talked. They won a game, one of 4 against the Brewers, and then they go in and sweep the White Sox again, win 1, sweep the doubleheader. So where, I mean, that actually puts them. Well, it did. I didn't check to see if late games affected it, but they were tied for the last wild card spot. What's your feeling on this team after this week? I mean, it's easy to ride the highs and lows, but when you look at it overall, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm guilty of being the eternal optimist, and it's I think that everybody has seen that on here, the positive spin. I think that I think they've grown up a lot quicker than people expected. I'm there for it, and I think that the plan is working. How do I say it? I'm happy with where they are right now. And it's one of those to where I felt like this week could have been a disaster. And I know everybody's going to be like, well, you finished with the White Sox, but to sweep a big league team on their field is big. You're right in the thick of it right now. You're right in the thick of it. You're not entirely healthy. And I feel like you're in a really good position to hang around most of the season. And that's all that we've kind of wanted, because I think that truth be told, there was an element of let's just see how well they play. If they don't, Helsley's out, Nolan's out, Matz is out, all these guys, and you're going to have one good flush before you think that next year these guys are going to grow into to be a year better. I think that you have built enough of a competitive team. Your depth's been tested a little bit, and I think that they passed that test with guys that are coming along to where you can see the makings of this could being a really good ball club before it's all said and done. Because there's been some hot streaks, there's been some cold streaks, and I mean that as in players in particular. The emergence of Herrera is huge. I mean, because if you think about all the bats that we had talked about, you're going to go to Walker Gorman first and then figure everything out. Well, now you realize that it's probably the Donovan Herrera type situation. The pressure's off Walker and Gorman a little bit, and I feel like they're performing and turning into complete players. Pitching will be an issue. I felt like they were maybe overachieving a little bit, early in the season, but they're competitive, and that's all you want to ask for out of the rotation. And it feels like some guys are coming. I think Roby and Matthews are those guys now that you're just like, okay, Roby may have caught Matthews where we thought Matthews was the guy that was going to be the first move. So there's some exciting things happening. I'm not trying to build some safety net on what I'm saying, but would we be surprised if they went out and lost 10 or 15, when the dog days of the summer happen and get themselves out of it? Probably not, because a lot of these guys are still trying to figure out their bats on a long major league season, the ins and outs, how tough it is, the everyday. One of those situations. I can see that happening because they're still so young. Average age of 26, I believe, that's pretty impressive to be where you are right now. Long-winded story. I'm pretty happy with where it's going because it's a good product to watch. I love the speed aspect. I love the defense aspect. And I feel like offensively, where they lack power, they really do battle in the box. And that's fun to see.
Yeah. And, you pointed out that – I'm sorry. You pointed out that it's, it is the White Sox, but they swept a big league team. You got to point out the fact that last year the White Sox were terrible, absolutely historically terrible, and yet they beat the Cardinals in a 3-game set in Busch Stadium, right? So there's no guarantees. It is something. You're right to go in and not only take the series but sweep it and sweep it in a way. I mean, they dominated game 1. They had to rally a couple times in the 2 games, and they really, game 3 should not have been as close as it was. And I think there's an argument to be made that early success is no longer the way you should be judging Kyle Leahy and yes, how he gets used. But maybe that's a story for another time. But yeah, I think that, it is, we've talked about it a lot, right? They're a 500 team, and they may win 10 in a row here, they may lose 10 in a row there, but they're probably going to be a 500 team. And it still feels like, in in that ballpark, right? I mean, if they finished 5 games over 500, which is around where they're at now, I don't think that would be too much of a surprise, unless, of course, they decide to sell at the deadline, and then all bets are off. But yeah, I think you have to be, content. I don't know. Do you is saying you should be content with this team? It may be an overstatement, but I don't think you should be upset with what we're seeing, especially when we saw what things were going to be like coming in. Quinn Matthews looked really good in his start. Yesterday, day before yesterday, I can't remember exactly. And I think Roby struggled a little bit at Memphis so far. So I don't know. I mean, McGreevy came up, and McGreevy's probably going to get another start here in another week or so, as the Cardinals have no off days. But I have a feeling that it might not take Quinn Matthews long to be back to where he was everybody in the fan base wanting to see him, and him really knocking on the door for an opportunity. And that would be really interesting if, unfortunately, I guess the only pitcher that's probably going to have value at the trade deadline would be Matz, and you don't really necessarily want to move him. But if you could move a starter out of your rotation and move in Quinn Matthews at the deadline, I think that would not be selling. That would be getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, completely agree. And it's back. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And after we got off last week and I had thought about it, I was like, I don't know. The pieces to sell, I just don't know are that existent. And I mean that in a positive way. Like they've done a good job of not being back against the wall of the guys that they have to move. I mean, because your return on Hillsley's not going to be great. Just because, he's not as successful as he was last year. And I mean, he's in his walk year. I think that's easy to shine the line on. I would have assumed that people will be interested in Matz. And that's one of those where contractually, I think that's one that they may move. I don't know. I think they kind of like what they see right now, but ultimately, if he has a long-term chance where he wants to start, he may push for something along those lines. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the deadline may be much more interesting than we thought, because I think that there may be pieces that are brought in.
Yeah, although I still think it's probably going to be one of your traditional Cardinal deadlines where if they bring in a piece, it's a relief arm.
That being the caveat, that's what I was going to say. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a big piece, but I think that there will be plans for the future. Either if it's a reliever, it's going to be on a short term. If not, it's going to be somebody young where they have controllable years on him.
Yeah, I think your best chance for interesting at the deadline or after is like a promotion of Matthews or something of that nature.
Yes.
Because I mean, the bullpen could use another arm, right? I mean, there are pieces out there that I don't know that anybody's just terrible out there, but there are people that you're not exactly enthused to see, right? And Leahy has struggled a lot, and I think that would be one to be. I mean, he's one that could go to Memphis at some point in time if they have an arm that's ready to come back up in a Graceffo or a Munoz or something like that. Not that those guys have been just huge upgrades, but they're at least nothing else gives Leahy maybe a chance to do what Roycroft did and go down and get kind of right and come back up and see if he can do better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that it is. I know Mo wanted an interesting trade deadline, and he may get it, but I have a feeling it's still going to be fairly quiet unless they do some selling, because I just, again, I just don't see that the pieces that they have to trade are either not worth much or too valuable to the team or are too valuable to the future.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I mean, I think that they have a plan. I think that, I think that's Mo and Bloom are working in unison to make some of those things happen. And I mean, the future's bright to me. I mean, I'm really excited about it. And you just to kind of see that some of these pitchers are now starting to knock on the door and starting to improve. And, I hold out a lot of, I worry about Hintz because he just can't stay healthy, but I really wish that's somebody that would kind of take it and run with it. But you can see the long-term outlook to me looks extremely promising.
Yeah. And then we were talking about history earlier. We should have probably also mentioned Andre Granillo, who got his first win, got his first save, got his first strikeouts all in the same day. And win and save especially are you don't. I saw that's only the second time that's ever happened. Period. That somebody's gotten a win and a save in the same day. So to get your first one that way, I think he's probably stands alone in history. And it's been a surprise. I mean, he was brought up because of his strikeout prowess. For him to, go, this was his third out. I guess yesterday's second game was his third outing, I think, maybe fourth. And the last batter is the one he struck out. To go that long without a strikeout is a little bit surprising. I mean, he's been fairly successful, don't get me wrong. But it's just, I mean, you thought you were bringing up a guy that was going to, bring that extra power to the bullpen. And as of yet, it hasn't necessarily clicked that way.
Yeah, they need strikeouts in the worst way. They just don't have any.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a staff, it's really rough. And I'm a big fan of the pitch to contact stuff, especially with their defense. But boy, it gets troublesome because then you run into situations with a hot team like the Jays, where they'd find the gaps on everything, and it costs you a sweep type situation. So no, I wish they had more strikeout potential, and I'm sure that's what he's up for, and hopefully it transpires.
Yeah, I think it probably will. And like I said, he's been successful so far, but defense definitely helps, and that's helped everybody else this year as well. On the offensive side, we've seen the resurgence of Alec Burleson, and this is kind of mapping along with what he did last year, right? A really slow April, and then kind of kicked it in for most of the year, and then I think it was he didn't hit a home run for the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. Still wound up second on the team in homers.
Yeah.
Right now he's looking really good, right? I mean, I think that it's one of those things that you have to have him in the lineup, which then, has a ripple effect as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge Burleson guy. Bat to ball skills are impressive, but yeah, it's funny for a big guy. I think he gets, you would kind of want some more power. I don't know if you watched the second game yesterday to watch his home run and where he went up to get it. Did you see it?
I don't guess I did.
Oh my gosh. It was eye level, the one that he hit to left field. Mm-hmm. And I was like, look how high that was. And I had to rewind and look several times, and I was like, that is some big time plate coverage. I mean, it was impressive. I think I love the two-way player aspect at East Carolina. I mean, I love what he brings. You can tell that he's a darn good teammate. The guys love him. I just feel like he's a fit, and just all of those aspects just make him one of my favorite Cardinals. So I would love to see that he just takes off and it forces his way for more playing time, and which honestly they've handed out well this year. I think the roster to me is put together better now than it has been in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's just, we had a stretch this week. Nolan Gorman is one of the hotter hitters, and he didn't play for 2 or 3 days because, Herrera's DHing, and which means Burleson's got to play the outfield, which put Donovan in. It's like, and there's a lot of moving parts that become difficult to juggle because it's hard to get Walker and Burleson and Gorman and Donovan and Herrera all in the lineup at the same time, especially if Herrera's DHing, which he has typically done. So, again, trying to juggle that, especially when players are, again, Walker and Gorman are kind of at that spot where they do need to be out there every day, if at all possible, because they were starting to find something, it felt like. And, but then again, Donovan's leading your team in hittings, and, Burleson's hot, and they don't want to have Herrera catch. So how do you do all that?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny where, I don't know, this is going to sound silly, but it's funny that Contreras being a good first baseman has almost hurt the lineup a little bit. And the fact that I think that there was a lot of aspect that there was going to be a lot of Contreras, DH, Burleson, open it up more, and not knowing that Herrera would be Herrera, which is a good problem to have, essentially. But yeah, someone gets left out on that. And, you're going to hear the runway term, which I think they've done a good job of this year. You're going to start hearing a little bit of pushback on that when you have a Gorman that is hot that's just not playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, juggling that is
It'd be
difficult.
tough.
I know.
Yeah.
But, I don't really have an answer for it either, except that.
Well, and that truth serum probably was Gorman at third base too.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they said all that before that when they thought they were going to have Nolan gone, and that didn't pan out. It did throw a wrench in things, but I think also what has thrown, has really. I think they expected Herrera to be more serviceable behind the plate, and given how Pages struggled a little bit yesterday, it might be still worth having him catch a little bit more, just because of his bat. I mean, I don't know that he's driving in 2 and letting in 3 or anything like that behind the plate. And it would free up. I mean, you run the injury risk and all that stuff. You do free up a spot that way. But yeah, I think they expected Herrera to catch the bulk of the games, right? I mean, not Yadier Molina levels, but they expected 55 or so percent, probably maybe 60% of the games Herrera to catch. And when he got hurt and things of that nature, and they like Pages behind the plate. And I get that. I mean, for the most part, he is a better defensive player, but man, Pages is a backup, right? And if you can start an actual catcher, again, even if Herrera is allowing stolen bases, his bat's valuable, and that allows you to put a better bat at DH or in first base and all that other stuff. It seems to be the easiest way to clear up that logjam, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they start doing that a little bit more. I mean, he caught the first game yesterday because Pages wasn't going to catch 2 of them. But I don't guess it was necessarily a given, right? They could have had Pozo catch one of those games too.
100%.
So I don't know. I'm interested to see if maybe that, they'll start Herrera a little bit more at catcher because they need these other bats in the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, like I said, could potentially be a good problem, a good problem to have, but that's also, the sunny side of that, I mean, the Herrera, gosh, the bat's going to play. We get it. But you do kind of wonder where that's going to end up long term with the, being so skeptical of the catching, and it's, I don't know. That's going to be a mystery they're going to have to solve. And we kind of knew some of that last year, but this year it kind of gets, you forgot just because he's such a valuable bat.
Yeah. Yeah. And at some point in time, Herrera's going to move off catcher. I get that.
Yeah, sure. That's what I'm saying. And you kind of wonder how that all works.
Yeah. I mean, but it's just not this year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point in time, either Gorman's played himself, well enough to be traded or out of the picture, or Burleson's gone, or somebody, some of these guys are going to move somehow. Or, they do trade Nolan and Gorman gets a chance to play third or whatever. And it's not a big deal, but with all the catchers coming up, Herrera is going to move at some point, but I just don't know that it's, right now I think I'd see if I could get him behind the plate more often and try to get these better bats in.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And, just play the hot hand as much as you can and, hope it doesn't kill you. Yeah.
We saw, Victor Scott hit a home run at the end of the game on Tuesday night, which granted was off a position player, so take it for what it's worth. But he has significantly struggled offensively. And I mean, I think you still play him because of the defense and everything like that. He's still better than Ciani over that way. But man, I do miss when he was more of an offensive threat, even in hitting late, you felt like, if he could get a hit. I mean, he did steal base yesterday. He actually got picked off as well. But, if he was being able to get a hit or two a game, or not every game, but, averaging up a little bit more of a threat, even if he's not hitting for power, I think that could bring a lot because the offense has sputtered at times over the last little bit. And I think that's because, he's been in the slump. Mason Wynn's been in a little bit of a slump. Obviously, Lars Nootbaar has been in a huge slump until he hit his home run yesterday. And we'll see if that breaks him out of it or if it was just a kind of a mirage. But there are places on this roster, and I guess that's the nature of things, but it'd be really nice if a few of those guys caught a little fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also noticed that Scott has had some issues bunting. He's having a hard time laying it down a lot. And that's one of those that's fun to watch when he's good and he's spraying the ball around that way. I guess it's just one of those things we probably should have expected a little bit with him. It's just youthful. I do think he needs to play every day as well. It's, I guess, the hot and cold aspect to every outfielder just magnifies it a little bit more because, Nootbaar last week was just cratered. And you hope that comes back a little bit, and then the exposure isn't so hard on Scott. But I have a feeling we'll probably be having this conversation with a different young player almost every week, just due to the ebbs and flows of the season as we get deeper into it and deeper into their big league exposure.
Yeah, I mean it is natural, and I mean there's nothing to really panic about. It's just a bit of a frustration.
Yeah.
You're right on the bunting, though. I know there was a couple of them. Was it last week that he went to bunt and almost got knocked down? And he bunted it and kind of fell backwards and such. It just wasn't in a position to run. He was almost kind of surprised by the pitch, I guess, to some degree. But you're right. If he can lay that down, and sometimes that will open things up. But he's a threat still. And it's good to see. I mean, I still like to see the young guys out there. They haven't worn out their welcome yet, so we'll see if that continues. And then you've got Contreras leading them, and Contreras is, man, I tell you, he has given more fiery interviews this year than I think we've seen as a Cardinal.
Yeah, he's the perfect example of you love him on your team, you hate him as an opponent. Because we felt the same way when he was in Chicago. One of those things. And I'm like, he is worked up. And you can tell that he's trying to light that fire every night. And he brings it every night. And like I said last week, he's fun for me to watch. And I'm surprised that we didn't have benches cleared last week in Milwaukee.
Yeah. I mean, we saw, and that is a bit surprising. We saw the Dodgers and Padres did that last night. You would think, and again, there's still 3 series with Milwaukee left. So, I imagine people are going to remember things. And we'll see if that carries over. But, yeah, he's been, you're right. I mean, these young guys got to have that veteran, and it's, I mean, I'm sure that Contreras has been this way since they came over, but Goldschmidt and Arenado kind of, and Wainwright, I guess his first year, kind of dominated the leadership, I guess is maybe the best way to say it. And now that a lot of Nolan's obviously still there, but he's shifted a little bit too. There's a vacuum, and Contreras has filled it. And I think that has, besides the fact that the young guys have come up, I think that has been done more to shift the approach, the vibe, if you will, if Kelsey's listening, of this team than maybe anything else. I mean, this team feels different, even though there's a lot of the same pieces that we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah. It's just a world of difference in the cultural field of the team. And, and that, I mean, honestly, I think that's the more, intriguing part to me about how quickly that has changed, because I thought that there may be a dip this year just because they're much more advanced and their gamble has worked with the young guys bringing a different persona and a different level of performance than I think was expected. I think that there would be more growing pains than there have been. What did you feel like there was big time energy in the ballpark when you were there?
Hard to tell because, first day was rain delay, and even though it was fairly crowded, there was, it was a pretty good excitement.
Yeah.
Second day, when you're up in the suites, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But
Of
I
course, it's
was
higher, so yeah.
yeah, yeah. And my seats the first night were in the 200 level too, so they was a little bit higher. I would say I don't know, there was an overall buzz, but it was probably close to what you would expect. It wasn't like dead quiet or anything like that.
Yeah, that's well, I mean, it's funny just watching everything. I was mad I had to miss that weekend, but I think we're gonna go the second week of July. I'm really looking forward to it. Like my family's really looking forward to it, and that says a lot because the past couple of years, if we didn't watch, it wasn't necessarily a missed. We didn't feel like it was a missed opportunity. And I think it was more of the aggravation of, oh man, where's this going? To where this year, I think that there's a lot more motivation, not only from, us and my family, but, I see it in the baseball team and the kids, and there's a lot of buy-in. They're just like, hey, and I think Scott and Wynn bring a lot to that, honestly, because those are the guys that are getting a lot of the headlines that are on the cover are, that are being showcased. And yet another one too is the coming of Weatherholt in a lot of the video games, and about how they are how they're scored out and leveled out and stuff like that. So I just feel like there's more energy on my side, and I don't know if it's just because I'm listening to it more or if it's obviously there.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that is, I'm watching it for the first time in 3 years regularly.
100%. Yeah, that's
but I think it is a lot of the fact that one, they're winning. I mean, even last year when they were, and I think we saw that some last year when they were winning, you got a little bit more of that, that excitement. It's just the fact that it just, it kind of tapered off, and we'll see what happens this year. But I think, the young guys being involved, the kind of idea, and I think there's that maybe that knowledge of, hey, things are changing, right? Heimblum takes over next year. You have Weatherholt not necessarily knocking on the door, but he's, pulling into your driveway. At this rate, you've got a high draft pick next month that will probably move along in the system fairly quickly as well. You've got Matthews and Roby, hopefully that'll be here soon. I think there's a little bit of a buzz because of all that as well, right? I mean, it's one thing when you've got a good team, but when you've got a good team that's got, is not necessarily just stagnant, which is what we saw, especially in 23, right? It felt like, not only is this the team that's struggling, it's a team that doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of future to it until the trades that happened. And you factor in Sajasi as well. I mean, Sajasi's a guy that you probably should be playing in the major leagues right now.
I was going to bring that up later on the show about when that call up happens. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we're already having trouble getting Nolan Gorman on the field. How do you get a Sajasi up here? So, I think that there's enough young, interesting talent that is given this franchise an injection to some degree of excitement. And again, it's nothing against the veteran leadership that they had. I mean, Goldie was great while he was here, and obviously you love Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina, but it's something different now. And I think Wilson Contreras kind of illustrates that, even as that that kind of that veteran leader, but he still has that fire that he had as a young player. I mean, man, I tell you, when the Cardinals went after him, I never expected that, a guy that was so associated with the Cubs would wind up being like the real leader of this team. But man, you don't even think about him being a Cub anymore.
Yeah, no, with that, yeah, it seems like a long time ago, which is only 3 years. I agree. He's been entrenched, and I like I said, we brought it up last week. He has really impressed me as a player, and some of the intangibles that he brings, and ultimately just being he's a huge bat, and it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to see develop, and he just brings a different mindset that I do think they were missing and have been missing for a while.
Yeah. And I guess, remember he was that guy that you hated when he was on the other side.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody talking, I don't remember who it was. Maybe it's Jim Edmonds talking about Tony La Russa. It's like how you hated him when he was, and then he got over here and, he's like, part of the cult of Tony, that kind of thing. It's the,
Yep.
just being on the same side. And I assume that, we don't hear about it as much. I assume Wilson Contreras stirs up all that anxiety and animosity on other players as well, on other team fans as well. Now I don't hear about it as much, but it's kind of fun to think that the Cardinals have a guy that really irritates other people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure there is a lot of, you can just tell by how the Dodgers handle it, which they can be a little sanctimonious, by the way. But by the way, the Dodgers handled it with the Adams home run replay. We can get into that, and then you can see some of the things that Milwaukee said under their breath. That I'm not so certain the Cardinals are extremely well liked, throughout the league. Probably a lot of that's due to Contreras. I don't know. I just get the feeling that that's probably how it plays out. But yeah, it's kind of nice to have that. We've always said, hey, they need that rusty nail in the worst way, and he obviously fits that role.
Yeah, it seems like it. Well, let's talk a little bit. I mean, when I think Kershaw was kind of kidding. We actually saw the clip. He was a little bit joking about them playing that. That said, I mean, that's kind of standard, right? They played 1985 clips of Ozzie hitting a home run, throughout the whole weekend. They played that Adams clip, a couple times. I know they played on Friday for sure. I saw it. I mean, that's just, when you've got teams that have a history, you're going to, relive that history. And when you're in your ballpark, you're going to relive it, the moments that you like, and so, I mean, I'm sure that, they would do the same. I just can't think of any right now.
Yeah.
They had to get the Cardinals. But I guess it's just fortunate enough they didn't run the Carpenter at bat too. So
yeah, 100%. And it could have been one of those they could have had Carpenter in town for it.
That's true. That's a friend of mine that went to Blogger Day with me. The guy always goes with me. He said that's what they should do is every game, every series, bring out a player that you took from the other team. Or has tormented the other team or something of that nature, like the Padres series, you make sure Ozzie Smith's front and center and all that kind of stuff. I mean, some of those trades are very old now. It wouldn't have the same impact, but, when the Cubs come to town, you're highlighting Wilson Contreras or something of that nature. So,
yeah,
that, if you wanted to be a little bit of a rusty nail in the things, you could do that. I don't think that's the Cardinals mantra, though. I don't think that the front office is really looking to, dig at other teams. I don't really, I mean, that's not why they ran, the Adams home run. It was more about, highlighting the Cardinal history versus, putting in a dig at Kershaw, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that Kershaw doesn't make a comment and, we never even talk about it or think about it again.
Right. Yeah. So the Cardinals are finally getting into league or division play, and I've railed on the balanced schedule enough. I'm not going to get into that again. They've got the Reds starting tonight, and then a 4-game series with the Cubs tomorrow or on Monday.
Yes.
Then they've got the Pirates the week after that. They've got another AL series, but between then. But 7 games against divisional opponents. Again, the Reds are just a game behind the Cardinals in the division right now. The Cardinals are 5.5 behind the Cubs. Are tied with the Brewers. I mean, I wouldn't say the division's all knotted up because that's a pretty decent gap for the Cubs.
Yeah.
But everybody else except for the Pirates is kind of all right there, where the Cardinals could be second place one night and fourth place the next night. What do they need to do in this homestand, do you think, to make you feel like this is still a team with a chance?
I think that it's I'm trying to think. You're always wanting that series. You have to win this. You have to win this weekend.
Yeah.
All right. You have to win the Red series because then you lose a game at best or at worst to them, and that gets a little bit scary. into June type situation. Because what worries me about the Reds is the Francona aspect. I just feel like that he's that good, and he's just, for somebody that's been around, he's just modern day manager. You know what I mean? I can brag about him. So here's my thing. I feel like you have to win the Cincinnati series. You could survive splitting the Cubs series, but winning 3 or 4 against the Cubs puts you in a pretty good spot because you gain that ground. You gained the ground on. I was trying to see who Milwaukee had this weekend. You gain ground for certain on the Cubs if you can win, 3 out of 4 next week, which is going to be a huge task. I think that you're happy. I think you're elated if you walk away 3-1 against them. I think that you're happy if you split the series. But you have to win the series this weekend.
Milwaukee's at Minnesota, so that could be you could gain some ground as well there. Yeah, I think you're right that you really need to. And I mean, you've got Sonny Gray going in game 1. Mm-hmm. So
I've always said there's a lot of signaling in those moving arounds too. I mean, I get why they did it, but I feel like there's a lot of it at home against Cincinnati, and they probably sent him home on Tuesday, essentially. You know what I mean? To rest up and be ready to go tonight.
Yeah. There's a good chance that they did. I doubt he was there with the risk of a game going late, even though it was a traditional doubleheader, not a split doubleheader. So they did get out of town fairly early. I'm sure you're right that they went ahead and sent him home once they knew that he wasn't. The only issue is, does that, extra day mess with Gray's routine? We'll have to see. And he's got to be better than he was last time out, right? I mean, to, give up 5 runs in 1 inning against the Brewers, facing an old team. We'll see. I think that it, again, you win that one, hopefully, and then you take one of the other 2. And the Reds are a team that are dangerous for sure, but haven't necessarily played to what the level that we thought that they would. So, and then you get the Cubs, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, if you can split with the Cubs, you can play with them. Although it may depend also on how you split, right? If you win a couple of close games to get blown out a couple of times, then you might worry about it. But for the most part, if you split, I think you're okay. If you won 3 out of 4, I think it's gravy. And you're doing much better than expected. I guess Gray would pitch at least once in that series too, so that'll help. But the Cubs have played better than I expected. I did not really think Pete Crow Armstrong was going to be this kind of guy.
Yes, I never realized that he was a power guy coming up, and it was one of those you're just like. I was talking to one of the kids yesterday about that. I said, that's what scares me the most because, one, Kyle Tucker's one of my favorite players in the bigs, and that's a guy that I would love to see as a Cardinal at some point. But the money he's going to make in the offseason, it's never going to happen. But whenever they brought him over is when I became really nervous that this could be the best Cubs team that we've seen in a while. And now to see what Armstrong's doing, or Crow Armstrong, PCA, I like. It's a little bit troublesome to think that they may be here to last. This may be lasting throughout the year, that they're really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is Tucker probably isn't there next year. I mean, you're right. It probably is. You're probably going to have a Cubs team that's good this year.
Yeah.
But that's the disturbing thing about Pete Crow Armstrong developing, is that he is going to be there for a while.
Yeah. What's funny is, our principal is a Chicago guy, and through and through. And even as good as they are right now, he said he will never check the standings till August because he just expects to fall out. And this is a lifelong Cubs fan. And I guess probably in the same that's the ideology behind it.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Claiborne says you can check at Flag Day, but if you're a Cubs fan, I agree. I mean, we've seen too many times where they've led in August or late August and just collapsed and stuff like that, right? I mean, completely useless by September, right? I mean, that's the Cubs motto. So, I hope so. I hope that we get a little Cubs collapse. That would be great, but it feels like this is a bit of a different team. Not that it's a knock on wood and hope that I don't think it's a World Series favorite by any means, but I mean, if they don't win the division, it's going to be a little bit surprising, right? Yeah. I mean, as much as we want the Cardinals to come back, and then, they're 5.5 games out, it's not impossible, but it would be, I think it just, like I said, be surprising if they didn't wind up. And then you put the Cubs in the playoffs and you never know.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I like the Cubs to be, at home in October. I like the Cubs to
100%.
be in the basement come, June, but that doesn't seem to happen as much.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those that you kind of start getting concerned that if they get in, they could be dangerous. And
Absolutely.
that worries you even more.
Yeah. I mean, we know what happens when teams sneak into playoffs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you get them in there, and I mean, you don't know. I mean, one fluky fluke of a thing, and things can change. So, yeah, I think that's what you're looking at this week, and again, by the time we record next week, that series will be done, and hopefully we're not. Hopefully we're not pivoting toward the trade deadline. Cause I mean, if you go, if you lose 3 or 4 to the Cubs and for some reason lose the series to the Reds. So, go 3 and 4 in this stretch or even 2 and 5. I think that's a pretty good dagger in what you've got because you've got to show up for these games.
Yeah.
Otherwise you got to wonder about this team.
Especially as well as you played at home. I mean, I think that's going to be a pretty big testament to what you are, because we're kind of getting into that stage where they were last year, where they played well early and ran it right up into around this time, pushing about 3.5, 4 weeks to the deadline, to where the kind of things collapse, and you kind of knew where they were, because when they come back from the break, they hardly won at all, and. You got to keep your head above water. You got to win these series, and I hate to say pivotal in June, but this feels pretty like it. This feels like a homestand. You can't walk away 3 and 4. Let's put it that way.
No. I mean, you do get another shot at the Cubs next weekend, 4th of July weekend. They're up in Chicago.
Yeah.
But,
all
in
3
Chicago
games too.
Yeah, that is true. So,
Yeah.
Assuming nobody moves that Sunday night game, which they probably would have done by now. I mean, this is important. I mean, and this is the big thing. They've got, after this homestand, they got the Guardians for 3, the Pirates for 3, the Cubs for 3. Then they have another homestand with the Nationals and Braves before the All-Star break. It's really, and then I've seen a couple other people mention that. How are we already to halfway point? How are we already almost halfway to the, well, let's see, Cardinals have played 75 games. So there's 6 games after this homestand, they'll be past the halfway point.
I mean, yeah, it's funny. On my end, you probably just, considering that April is the opener for us. That's the heavy part of the season for high school, because you get into that April rush to the 1st of May. So while I watch every game that I can and I follow it all the way through, I can see why that first month of the season is tough and flies by.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get past Memorial Day, though, and you're thinking, where the heck did this go? And more so now, we're looking at 4th of July stuff. So I think that's a good thing. I think that you look at, it's so exciting that you're looking forward to it every night. To where last year, I will tell you, the last couple of years were situations to where there would be things I would choose to do over Cardinals games, and that hasn't happened in the past. Yeah. It's back now to the flip to where it's appointment television at our house, and our family loves it. So I can see where it gets here quickly, but it's still, nonetheless, it's one of those to where you have that anxiety of 5.5 out late June, and you live and die with them every night. You know what I mean? It's one of those, may not be the best for my health, but it somewhat soothes my competitive nature too. So you win some, you lose some, I guess.
Well, and you've only been back over here for 2 shows, so it's hard to believe you're already at the halfway point, right? So, and then this man's going to take off for Hawaii next week, so we're going to have to find another replacement. But we'll hopefully, he'll be calm and refreshed and ready to go for the stretch run when you get back.
Yep, yeah. I'm looking forward to it, and maybe I used to not be you need a vacation type person, but this year I feel like I do. It's the first time that I've actually kind of felt that way, because I kind of want to be away from everything. Not necessarily baseball. I'm going to go, and Hawaii has a camp, one of those during the weekend. And, a couple of years ago, walked out on the field during one of their camps and kind of thought, oh, this is pretty nice. But then that's just the Hawaii lifestyle. You can kind of walk in and just do anything you want. It's so laid back. So they have, toward the end of the week, they have a kind of a showcase camp, and we're going to go get some U of H Hawaii stuff like I did last time. And, I still will be around baseball, and I get to watch the Cardinals. I'll get to watch the Cardinals during the day, considering the time difference. So that'll be nice. So, as much as I hate missing every pitch of a Cubs series, I think it's going to be worth it to get out with the family. And, that's where my wife went to high school. So I have we love going, and it's one of those to where I have a tour guide the whole time, and we get off the beaten path. And Hawaii is just a big country town, and anybody knows me just knows I'm a big country guy. So it works out pretty well.
Well, that Thursday game, you have to wake up if you're going to watch it.
Hey, let me tell you a story. I know that we're running just part of our time. One of my favorite memories from Hawaii is when we went the first time. And we went, and it was right before Memorial Day weekend, which it falls on the Big 12 tournament. Well, I got really lucky because this wouldn't be lucky for a lot of people, but Oklahoma State played the 9 o'clock game 3 days in a row in the Big 12 tournament, and they went on to win it. Well, 9 o'clock in Central Time is 4 o'clock there. So I will tell you, you guys know me. Anybody that's on the show knows that I'm early to bed, early to rise. I'm up, well before the sun a lot of the time. And it was heaven to me because I brought my iPad. I got to watch every pitch of the 9 a.m. game at 4 in the morning with Hawaiian coffee, with Hawaiian fruit, while watching the ocean and watching people going out to surf. Because there, the sun rises a little after 5. And it's right up my alley because everyone there is an early riser as well, other than the tourists. So you have just enough activity to see that, you're not taking care of it doesn't feel like you're watching it at the bar at 3 in the morning. You know what I mean? It's one of those where there's just enough activity to make you feel alive. You're watching the things that you love to watch, being college baseball, and you're consuming the things and good Hawaiian coffee while sitting on the porch in beautiful weather. It was very, very tough to beat my first year. And that's one of my best memories of being in Hawaii and as a baseball fan, and how everything kind of came together was pretty special for me.
Very nice. Very nice. I will not be in Hawaii. I will be here in 100-degree heat. So,
I can tell you, it is the 20th of June. I'm upstairs right now sweating with the air conditioner running. And I make it a rule, never complain about the heat before August in Oklahoma, but it's getting very difficult not to do.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it. Summer doesn't actually show up until tomorrow, but once it does, according to the weather, it's going to be here. So anyway, Cardinals, big series. We'll see how that goes. We'll back at you next week. I'll find somebody to fill in for Mr. Medlock. But until then, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
Arenado, deep left. Has he done it? Goodbye. A grand slam to end the night.
2 fastballs and decided to go breaking ball and hung it. What a night for the St. Louis Cardinals, coming all the way back. Down 2 in the ninth to Devin Williams to tie it. And a walk-off slam.